The individuals who appear to be falling behind in their 20s often become the very figures future generations study in their 40s. I'm referring to the person who simply cannot pretend for very long. They can engage in light conversation, but it feels like borrowing a stranger's coat. They hear, "You're so intelligent," and yet still feel like they're missing the manual on how to be human. They don't travel in groups. They don't follow the standard blueprint. They're the one who vanishes for a stretch of time, not out of indifference, but because their internal universe is overwhelming and craves authenticity. Perhaps this describes you. You've observed people your age checking off achievements as if they're speed-running existence, careers, relationships, social lives, confidence, certainty, while you remain in a slower lane, trying to figure out why conventional success feels hollow when it lacks personal alignment. The confusing part is that you aren't lazy. You're reflecting, sensing, digesting, quietly reconstructing yourself behind the scenes, and then wondering why the world doesn't applaud internal labor. Your timing isn't broken, it's just your own. Here's an unspoken tension. If your personality is uncommon, your surroundings probably weren't designed for you. And when you're uncommon, you get dismissed before you get appreciated. Early existence rewards rapid assimilation. Pick a function, execute it well, adapt to the machinery, absorb the guidelines, and become beneficial. But some people aren't meant to be beneficial first. They're meant to be genuine first. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who essentially provided vocabulary for the inner landscape in ways that still jolt people into awareness, discussed a concept called individuation. This is the extended journey of becoming your actual self, not the version your relatives, society, or anxieties conditioned you to be. Jung didn't treat the soul as a decorative idea. He treated it as a genuine psychological force that will resist if you disregard it. Individuation carries an early cost because it makes you less agreeable to the majority. If you're the kind who detects unspoken dynamics, power struggles, performative kindness, the say the right thing energy, then you also recognize that you're expected to exchange honesty for acceptance. And when you refuse that exchange, others label you as complicated, intense, overly sensitive, distant, or arrogant, even when you're merely trying to remain authentic. So you learn to adopt a persona. Jung used that term to describe the social disguise we develop to navigate life. The problem isn't having a persona. The problem is residing entirely within it. If you're uncommon in nature, your persona tends to be especially refined because you've had to interpret yourself constantly. You become skilled at appearing okay while feeling disconnected from reality. And this leads to a very distinct form of exhaustion. Not fatigue from overwork, but burnout from performing a version of yourself that doesn't align with your interior state. And here's the paradox that confuses people. Premature success can be a disadvantage for the uncommon type. If you receive rewards for the mask, grades, admiration, attention, being the composed one or the talented one, you might construct an entire identity around what earns validation. Then eventually your nervous system starts to protest. Anxiety rises. Drive decreases. You feel numb or agitated or as if you're squandering your existence even when nothing appears wrong. That isn't you being flawed. That's your authentic self requesting a more genuine life. You're not here to master the game first. You're here to master yourself first. Let me ask you something personal. And if it resonates, share it in the comments so you realize you're not isolated. Have you ever felt like your external life is acceptable, but your internal world is silently pleading for a completely different path? Because the late bloom doesn't arrive from magic. It arrives from a concealed assignment. And the concealed assignment is this. You aren't here to dominate the external systems first. You're here to dominate your own being first. And that is inconvenient for the world around you because early existence is essentially one lengthy tryout. Family structures reward the version of you that maintains stability. Educational institutions reward the version of you that reproduces correct answers. Workplaces reward the version of you that matches the corporate culture. And social groups reward the version of you that keeps interactions light, effortless, and simple. But the uncommon personality, especially the one Jung explored through individuation, doesn't find peace from conforming. It finds peace from harmonizing. That transforms everything because harmony forces you to notice what you've been doing to receive affection. The character you adopted, the mask you polished, and the fragments of yourself you stored away because they weren't practical. Jung's major contribution here is the concept that the psyche isn't just your conscious awareness. There's the personal unconscious, your suppressed memories, the characteristics you learned were undesirable. And there's a deeper stratum he called the collective unconscious, filled with patterns that humans continue to repeat across generations. That sounds abstract, but it manifests in very ordinary ways. You keep dating the same type of partner. You keep selecting the same type of career. You keep replaying the same internal argument, as if your existence is on a repetitive cycle. But the cycle isn't a punishment. It's a lesson plan. And the most difficult subject in that lesson plan is the shadow. The aspects of yourself you rejected to endure. Not evil aspects, just banished aspects. Your frustration that you were taught to suppress. Your drive that made others uncomfortable. Your gentleness that didn't feel secure. Your strength that got penalized. Even your sensitivity that got branded as an issue. When you're young, you can survive by exiling those aspects and depending on the persona. You can even accomplish a great deal that way. But there's a cost. You begin living a partial existence. Here's why opposition comes early. When you stop living a partial existence, you become less foreseeable. People like predictability. Predictability makes them feel secure. The uncommon type starts challenging things that everyone else accepts as ordinary. They don't simply ask, "How do I succeed?" They ask, "What am I transforming into while I succeed?" That question makes some people defensive, not because you did something incorrect, but because you unintentionally present a reflection. In contemporary psychology terms, this can resemble a conflict between your intrinsic needs and external approval. Self-determination theory indicates that humans require autonomy, competence, and connection to flourish. The late bloomer tends to prioritize autonomy and significance early, while society pushes connection and position. If you pursue belonging by betraying yourself, your mind and body begin transmitting signals, anxiety, numbness, procrastination that isn't truly procrastination. It's resistance to an existence that doesn't correspond with your truth. Attachment patterns also play a role. If you grew up needing to earn closeness, being the obedient child, the high achiever, the mediator, you may be excessively aware of others' emotional states. This makes you skilled at interpreting a room but terrible at understanding your own requirements. The hidden assignment becomes reparenting yourself, learning that love doesn't demand your disappearance. Spiritually, this is the initiation phase. Various traditions name it differently. The dark night of the spirit, the descent, the wilderness. It's the season where your previous identity stops functioning, but your new one isn't completely built yet. From an external view, it looks like a delay. From an internal view, it's construction. Greater awareness doesn't arrive as permanent joy. It arrives as truthfulness. The moment you stop deceiving yourself, your life begins to reorganize. That reorganization might cost you specific friendships, specific directions, and specific versions of achievement. But later, it returns something superior, an existence that feels genuinely your own. So when you spend your early years performing shadow work, whether you label it therapy, recovery, spiritual awakening, self-investigation, or simply becoming honest with yourself, you're constructing something most people postpone until circumstances force it. You're constructing an internal foundation. And foundations don't look remarkable while they're being poured. They look slow, as if nothing is occurring. Meanwhile, someone else is decorating a residence with no structural integrity, and receiving applause for it. But the psyche keeps accurate records. Jung's point about individuation is that completeness generates energy, not superficial excitement, but pure energy. When your internal components stop opposing each other, when the banished aspects come home, your existence stops losing power through anxiety, people-pleasing, overthinking, and self-betrayal. That recovered power manifests as momentum. You become steady without straining. You become decisive without requiring everyone's agreement. You start selecting from self-respect, not from apprehension. And that's where the compelling later success originates. People assume charisma is confidence. It's not. It's congruence. It's when your speech matches your expression, your decisions match your principles, and your limits match your self-worth. You stop performing virtue and start living reality. That frequency is noticeable. You enter spaces without pleading for the space to welcome you. And paradoxically, that's when acceptance appears. Here's another twist. Early rejection teaches selection. When you've been misinterpreted, you stop pursuing crowds. You learn to construct your world around meaningful connections, not numerical approval. You stop needing to be liked by everyone because you've already endured not being liked. That makes you emotionally liberated. And emotionally liberated people tend to succeed because they take smarter risks. They produce. They invent. They don't collapse every time someone disapproves. So, how do you stop wasting years trying to push a premature schedule? First, stop using other people's achievements as your measurement tool. That's a recipe for self-hatred disguised as drive. Second, treat your sensitivity as information, not a defect. If your nervous system rejects the direction, pay attention. Third, build your existence around your genuine energy, not your obligated energy. The uncommon type doesn't succeed by forcing harder. They succeed by aligning deeper. And here's the practical part. No one declares openly. Select one container for your abilities. A skill, a collection of work, a discipline, a path you can invest yourself into for 2 years without demanding immediate confirmation. Your late blooming requires regularity more than force. Allow it to be unexciting sometimes. Allow it to be gradual. That is how roots develop. If you've ever felt like you're operating on a different schedule than everyone else, what's one thing you wish people understood about you that you rarely express? Drop it in the comments. You might write the exact sentence someone else required today. And if this video made you feel recognized or helped you understand your own timeline, make sure to like and subscribe to Winds of Thought. We're cultivating a space here for reflective minds, gentle hearts, and authentic development. No pretending. No performing. Your timing isn't incorrect. It's simply yours.